Americans dump nearly $210 billion every single year on car maintenance and repairs. The painful part? At least 30% of that money didn't need to be spent at all. I'm about to share 10 secrets that mechanics have been keeping to themselves for decades. These are the tricks, products, and maintenance habits that can save you thousands of dollars. And the last one I'll reveal is completely free, but could save you over $6,000. Let's kick things off with AT205 Reseal. This single product can rescue you from one of the most wallet-crushing repairs out there, a transmission leak. Once your transmission starts leaking fluid, you're looking at overheating problems, fluid starvation, and eventually complete transmission failure. Replacing a transmission can set you back $7,000, which is exactly why AT205 Reseal exists. This product works as a plasticizer that brings old rubber seals, hoses, and gaskets back to life. Your transmission seals age just like everything else. They lose their flexibility over time, similar to what happens to a rubber band that's been sitting in the sun too long. As these seals shrink and harden, they can no longer create a tight seal, and that's when the leaks start. But add a bottle of AT205 to your system, and that dried out rubber becomes flexible again, stopping the leak in its tracks. While engine additives generally have a questionable reputation, this particular product has been validated through lab testing, field tests, and thousands of satisfied drivers. One guy was staring down an $1,800 bill to fix a minor transmission leak. After using one bottle of AT205, the leak completely disappeared. Another driver with a BMW facing the notorious oil filter housing head gasket problem was quoted a shocking $4,000 for the repair. At 205, Reseal solved the problem. Spending $24 to avoid spending $4,000 is about as good as deals get. Next up is the affordable alternative to walnut blasting for direct injection engines. Gasoline direct injection engines use up to 15% less fuel compared to port injection engines. But this improved fuel efficiency comes with a catch. GDI engines accumulate much more carbon buildup, and mechanics will tell you the only way to remove it is through walnut blasting. This cleaning process costs between $800 and $1,200. Cars with GDI engines need this treatment every 50,000 miles at minimum. Volkswagen dealers recommend doing it every 40,000 miles. But there's another option. CRC GDI intake valve and turbo cleaner is a powerful additive that dissolves carbon deposits. This product contains high levels of polyethylamine, and it can dissolve 46% of carbon deposits in less than an hour. At $17 per bottle, it's an absolute steal. Use this every 10,000 miles and you can skip walnut blasting entirely. Here's something that proves you weren't imagining things when you thought your mechanic made things worse. The torque wrench reality about head gaskets will validate those suspicions. If your car seems to develop new problems every time you visit a mechanic, you're not being paranoid. This happens frequently with head gasket repairs. Research shows that roughly 30% of head gasket failures happen within 10,000 miles of a previous engine repair. The replacement part itself usually isn't the problem. The real issue is that the mechanic didn't torque the bolts properly. Head bolts require precise torque applied in a specific sequence. If the bolt is too loose, the head gasket won't seal properly. If it's too tight, it crushes the gasket, which also prevents a proper seal. With head gasket replacements costing between $1,500 and $2,500, there's no excuse for mechanics to mess this up. They won't admit to the mistake though. They'd rather blame your driving habits or claim the part was defective. The only way to prevent this is to watch them work on your car. Most shops use impact guns instead of torque wrenches because it's faster. Insist they use a torque wrench for accurate results. Otherwise, you'll be back within a year dealing with the same problem. The transmission fluid flush debate is one of the most controversial topics in automotive maintenance. One group insists you should flush the transmission every 30,000 miles. Others say never do it because it will wreck your engine. The truth sits somewhere in the middle. Like every other fluid in your vehicle, transmission fluid degrades over time from extreme temperatures and contamination. That's why you need to change it every 60,000 miles. But here's the key. Don't flush it. What you actually need is a simple drain and fill. Machines that perform flushes tend to knock loose large chunks of accumulated debris that end up blocking small passages. You also need some of that debris to help season the clutches. Flushing a high-mileage engine is a fast way to destroy the transmission. You'll end up with leaks so severe that even AT205 reseal won't help. A new transmission costs at least $4,000, which is an absurd amount to spend on an older vehicle. A $200 drain and fill does wonders for extending transmission life. Let's talk about the stuck thermostat prevention strategy. Nearly half of all drivers ignore dashboard warning lights. One of the most dangerous to ignore is engine overheating. A stuck thermostat causes overheating, which often results in a $2,000 plus head gasket repair. What most mechanics won't mention is that this is completely preventable. Thermostats don't just suddenly stick open or closed. It's a gradual process. Thermostats use a wax pellet that expands and contracts with temperature changes. Over time, this wax responds more slowly. When this happens, your car takes longer to warm up, experiences temperature fluctuations, or runs hotter than normal. These are signs to inspect and replace the thermostat. Most manufacturers recommend replacing it at 80,000 miles or at the first sign of temperature irregularity. It's a straightforward job that costs less than $250, or you can do it yourself for half that amount. Keep in mind it can take as little as 2 weeks from the first signs of trouble to a blown head gasket. Roughly 40% of oil leak repairs stem from clogged PCV valves, yet most drivers have no idea what this part even does. The positive crankcase ventilation valve is an emissions control device that regulates pressure in the crankcase and prevents harmful gases from escaping into the atmosphere. It does this by redirecting blow-by gases from the crankcase back into the intake manifold where they get reburned. Once the PCV valve becomes clogged, internal pressure builds up, which can cause seals and gaskets to fail. This can also lead to sludge formation in the engine. In a best-case scenario, you replace a few seals for just over $1,000. However, if you need to remove sludge and the blown seals have damaged the engine, you could spend over $5,000. This makes the PCV valve one of the most ridiculous secrets mechanics keep. A new part only costs about $15, which is exactly why they don't bother mentioning it. To protect your car and your wallet, change the PCV valve every 30,000 miles. Even if you don't see any signs of damage, it's a small price to pay for peace of mind. Catalytic converter replacements are an easy way for auto shops to extract money from customers. As soon as they notice it's failing, they can scare drivers into paying up to $2,500 for a replacement. But here's what they don't tell you. Special additives can restore most failing catalytic converters. The most popular is CataClean. It's a fuel and exhaust system cleaner that removes carbon buildup from the fuel line and catalytic converters. And it actually works. Thousands of drivers have saved thousands of dollars using this product. Extensive testing by automotive experts has shown that CataClean restores efficiency in 70% of mildly failing catalytic converters. The trick is treating your engine before it's too late. As soon as you see a P0420 or P0430 code, grab a bottle for just $25. That might seem expensive for an additive, but considering how much it saves, it's a bargain. According to the NHTSA, customers lose tens of billions each year to unnecessary repairs. This particular trick takes the prize. Every time you have a failing oxygen sensor, shady mechanics offer to replace all of them. But here's the reality. Sensors fail independently of each other. This means if you have two upstream sensors, you only need to replace one. Sure, it might be more convenient to change both, especially if you have the budget. However, there's only a 15% chance that the other pre-cat sensor will fail before 20,000 miles. Plus, a failed upstream oxygen sensor has no impact on the downstream or post-cat sensors, considering that each sensor replacement can cost up to $400. This can save you between $400 and $1,200 depending on how many sensors your car has. Here's the scenario. You jump in your car, turn the key, and hear a click, but nothing happens. The engine won't start. Your mechanic will immediately tell you that you need a new starter. But if you're not ready to spend between $400 and $1,500, try tapping the solenoid first. The reality is that 80% of failed starters are actually failed starter solenoids. In many cases, you can give them a temporary fix by tapping the starter body with a hammer. The solenoid is an electromagnetic switch with contacts inside. Over time, these contacts develop pits and carbon buildup. When you gently tap the starter with a hammer, you can push the contacts back into proper alignment. This isn't a permanent solution. At best, it buys you an extra 3 months. But that can give you enough time to save money and find a better deal. And finally, the biggest money-saving secret of all, the free transmission reset. The worst thing you can do when your transmission starts acting strange is immediately see a mechanic. Rough shifting, hesitation, and jerky movement might seem terrifying, but the real nightmare is getting billed for a new transmission when you could have fixed the problem for free. Modern transmissions have an adaptive learning system that occasionally gets confused. Maybe you hit too many potholes or your car is just aging. When your car's transmission computer gets confused, it acts like the transmission is about to fail completely. That's a repair costing between $2,000 and $7,000. For higher-end vehicles, that's closer to $15,000. However, don't visit a mechanic until you try a TCM reset. Every car has a specific sequence that allows you to clear the TCM's memory so it can relearn your driving style from scratch. This might involve disconnecting the battery for 30 minutes or using an OBD2 scanner. I've seen this work on thousands of cars, and it drives other mechanics crazy every single time. All of these secrets combined will save you thousands of dollars in repairs and maintenance every year.